develop. And if the person doesn't, they're out. Okay, and that's another kind of democracy. So it's up to us to choose which kind of democracy we want, and again, that'll determine what comes next. Well, what can we anticipate if the popular army, the grassroots army, decides to accept the function of spectators of action rather than participants? There's two kinds of evidence. There's rhetoric and there's action. The rhetoric, we know, it's very uplifting, change, hope, and so on. Change was kind of reflexive. Any party manager this year who read the polls, including the ones I cited, would instantly conclude that our theme in the election has to be change, because people hate what's going on for good reasons. So the theme is change. And in fact, both parties, for both of them, the theme was change, break from the past, none of the old politics, new things are going to happen. The Obama campaign did it better, so they won the marketing award, not the McCain campaign. Notice, incidentally, on the side, that the institutions that run the elections, the public relations industry, advertisers, they have a role. Their major role is commercial advertising. I mean, selling a candidate is a kind of a side role. In commercial advertising, as everybody knows, everybody who's ever, say, looked at a television program, the advertising is not intended to provide information about the product, right? I don't have to go on about that. It's obvious. The point of the advertising is to delude people with imagery and tales of a football player, or a sexy actress who drives to the moon in a car or something like that. But it's certainly not to inform people. In fact, it's to keep people uninformed. The goal of advertising is to create uninformed consumers who will make irrational choices. Those of you who've suffered through an economics course know that markets are supposed to be based on informed consumers making rational choices. But industry spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year to undermine markets and to ensure that you get uninformed consumers making irrational choices. And when they turn to selling a candidate, they do the same thing. They want uninformed consumers, uninformed voters, to make irrational choices based on the success of illusion, slander, invective, body language, or whatever else is supposed to be significant. So you undermine democracy pretty much the same way you undermine markets. That's the nature of an election when it's run by the business world, and you'd expect it to be like that. There should be no surprise there. And it should also turn out that the elected candidate doesn't have any debts. So you can follow a brand Obama can be whatever they decide it to be, not what the population decides that it should be, as in the South, let's say. I might say on the side that this may be an actual instance of the familiar and usually vacuous slogan about clash of civilizations. Maybe there really is one, but not the kind that is usually touted. So let's go back to the evidence that we have, rhetoric and actions. Rhetoric, we know. What are the actions? Well, so far the major actions are selection of, in fact the only actions are selection of personnel to implement brand Obama. The first choice was the vice president, Joe Biden, one of the strongest supporters of the war in Iraq in the Senate. Long-time Washington insider, rarely deviates from the party vote. In the cases where he does deviate are not very uplifting. So he did break from the party in voting for a Senate resolution that prevented people from getting rid of their debts by individuals, that is, from getting rid of their debts by going into bankruptcy. It's blow against poor people who are caught in this immense debt that's a large part of the basis for the economy these days. But usually he's a kind of straight party liner, votes with the Democrats on the sort of ultra-nationalist side. The choice of Biden must have been a conscious attempt to show contempt for the base of people who were voting for Obama and were organizing for him as an anti-war candidate. Well, the first post-election appointment was for Chief of Staff, which is a crucial appointment, determines a large part of the president's agenda. That was Rahm Emanuel, one of the strongest supporters of the war in Iraq in the House. In fact, he was the only member of the Illinois delegation who voted for Bush's effective declaration of war. And again, a long-time Washington insider. Also one of the leading recipients in Congress of funding from the financial institutions and hedge funds and so on. He himself was an investment banker. That's his background. So that's the Chief of Staff. The next group of appointments were the main problem that the primary issue that the government's going to have to face is what to do about the financial crisis. Obama's choices to more or less run this were Robert Rubin and Larry Summers from the Clinton Secretaries of Treasury under Clinton. They are among the people who are substantially responsible for the crisis. Actually, one leading economist, one of the few economists who's been right all along in predicting what's happening, Dean Baker, pointed out that selecting them is like selecting Osama bin Laden to run the war on terror. Yeah, I'll finish. This saves me the problem of talking about what's coming next. I'll just finish with the elections. Let me make one final comment on this. There was a meeting on November 7th, I think, of a group of a couple of dozen advisors to deal with the financial crisis. Their records were reviewed in the business press. Bloomberg News had an article reviewing their records and concluded that most of these people shouldn't be giving advice about the economy. They should be getting subpoenas because most of them were involved in one or another form of financial fraud. That includes Rahm Emanuel, for example. He said, what reason is there to think that the people who brought this crisis about are somehow going to fix it? Well, that's a good indication of what's likely to come next, at least if we look at actions. We could, but I won't, you can bring this up, ask what we expect to see in particular cases. And there's evidence about that from statements from Obama's website. I'll mention just one thing about Obama's website, which gives an indication of what's happening. One of the major problems coming is Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's pretty serious. Take a look at Obama's website under issues, foreign policy issues. The names don't even appear. I mean, we're supposed to be ignorant and meddlesome outsiders. We're not supposed to know what brand Obama is. So you can't find out that way. The statements that you hear are pretty hawkish. And it doesn't change much as you go through the list, but I'll wrap up here. So it's up to you to continue.
There you go.